I want to make sure that everyone's come to the conference really prepared, having read their social marketing textbooks. So please tell me, how many P's are there in social marketing? 7. 7. Other calls? Anyone with any other numbers? 273. Fantastic. And anyone who read my abstract isn't allowed to answer this. Any other calls? So we've got 273, 7. Well, I'm here to tell you today that there are actually 3 P's that really matter in social marketing: power, potential, and passion. So in this talk today, I really want to give you an explanation of why I am suggesting that that's the case. So all of us who work in social marketing are really aware of the power that it has. So just picking up on what Gerard was saying early on, we really do have the power to tackle the wicked problems that still plague humanity, to save lives and to make a profound difference to the quality of life of millions of people. We are blessed with increasing knowledge every day about the human brain. We know about the 2 sides of the brain, and we know how to understand them and how to use them to help us to achieve the sorts of outcomes that we're often trying to achieve. We also have some fantastic frameworks to use that tell us that depending on the particular problem that we're looking at, there are different types of solutions and often combinations of solutions that are going to be most effective in driving the kind of change that we want. And one of my favourites is the National Centre for Social Marketing Benchmark Criteria that I know you all know off by heart. What I love about this one is that it helps us, it's a criteria or a framework that helps us to develop really effective social marketing campaigns and strategies, but it also is a great tool for evaluating what we've come up with and really trying to understand and unpick why it's working or why it's not working. So what I want to do now briefly is just show you some strategies or campaigns that have been developed based on this criteria and demonstrate really the power that social marketing has. So firstly, we'll have a look at this. One of the first criteria for the National Centre for Social Marketing is that we need to be behaviourally focused. So one of the tools we have is the ability to put a plan on a page, to create a strategy logic or a campaign logic, which actually helps us to define clearly what is the problem. The problem here is that we need to stop women being killed. How are we going to do that? Whose behaviour needs to change? Well, there's only 2 sets of behaviour that we can change that's going to save that woman in that moment. One of them is the perpetrators and the other is whoever is aware that it's actually happening. Those are really the only 2 groups. So just getting clear on what's the problem and whose behaviour are we trying to influence really drives then the kind of strategy that's going to be most effective. Now, I would love to show you this ad with sound. However, I thought it might be quite useful if I just talk you through what's happening here. So this is an example of an execution that shows us what can happen in far too many families. Now, at the time, I think right up to today, we've had 55 women killed in Australia this year. This is a very common pattern. It's horrible for us to watch here, probably a little less horrible without the sound. But actually, for the perpetrators involved, when we've spoken to them, this is all too familiar. And it really doesn't help them to see this kind of behaviour in front of them. It doesn't make them feel bad or want to change. What we're now looking at in this ad is what's powerful. We're modelling the behaviour that we want the perpetrator to have. And we're actually giving him a reason to change his behaviour. What's that reason? What can we see there? What's the reason? Sorry? Children. We found that about half the perpetrators were particularly interested in continuing a relationship with their partner, therefore appealing to, if you want to have any chance with your partner, stop being violent, was effective. The other half had already given up on any kind of relationship with their partner, but they wanted a relationship with their children. So having those two benefits there was enough, and I don't apologise for focus groups or any kind of research here to actually tell us that this was going to be effective, which is actually what occurred once the campaign was launched. The other thing that we've learned from the benchmark criteria is that we need to be customer-centric. We really need to go through at every stage of the development of our strategies a way to get the customer's views embedded in the development, the design, the testing and the evaluation of what we're coming up with.
Every night of the week. We all love a good night out. But sometimes with a little too much alcohol on board, we can make the wrong move.
What do you think you're doing, mate?
I'm sorry, brother. It's a small street.
You're trying to be tough in front of your mates here?
Tough in front of no one, mate.
The smart move is to look after your mates. But perhaps the smarter move still is to walk away. Have you got the moves to look after your mates? Authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
The reason I'm showing that one is I think it's a particularly good, insightful piece of work based on the understanding that if you're in a position where your friend is going to get into trouble and be violent on the streets, for example, most social pressure is for you to actually support him or go along with him rather than trying to stop him. And until this kind of messaging actually came in, your average kind of onlooker or witness really didn't have any permission to intervene and actually try and get their friend out of trouble. So this kind of approach is really based on that insight that friends need permission sometimes to help their friend to stay out of trouble. Highly effective piece of work. We know how to create an exchange, and I think Gerard was talking about this earlier, and I want to show and share with you the one from domestic and family violence for an execution you're about to look at. So here what we're doing, remember how we said earlier, there are two people who can stop her dying. One is the perpetrator, if we can get him to stop and change his behaviour. The other is the witness. So in this case, if I report family violence to the police, that's the behaviour we want, instead of turning my back, and I think it was about 65% of people had actually witnessed domestic violence and not done anything about it. I will feel relieved, satisfied and happier because I'm helping to keep women and children safe by ending the silence around family violence. I know this will happen because brave, courageous, caring, generous and helpful people like me have done the right thing and felt this way. So here's another ad that we don't have sound for, but basically what it's showing us is different scenarios where people are hearing that domestic and family violence is happening and they don't know what to do. But the thing that has been really embedded here based on the insight from talking to witnesses who don't do anything as well as those who do report to the police is the need for those around them to support the behaviour. Their biggest fear is being judged and criticised by others for interfering in a family's business. And so knowing that actually the people around them are supporting their behaviour was the trigger they needed to get them to pick up the phone. So it's not necessarily going to work for the whole 65% of that territory that aren't actually calling the police, but it would work for a good proportion who wanted to do the right thing, just needed a trigger to actually remind them about what they need to do if they think that someone is in danger. We understand competition, and the great thing, one of the things I love from social marketing is recognising that we're always competing. Whenever we're trying to influence behaviour, there's always competition. And what we need to do is understand what we want people to do, not just what we don't want them to do. And when we're looking at what we want to encourage, we know that we need to promote and enhance the benefits and reduce as much as possible the barriers. And likewise with the current behaviour, the status quo, which is often our competition, what we want to do is decrease the benefits and increase the barriers, make it harder for people to keep doing what they've always done, make it uncomfortable in some cases. So here's an example from road safety, and what we're looking at here is distracted driving, which is a #1 problem at the moment. I think a lot of road agencies are trying to tackle. So what we found when we did the research is that people, one of the driving motivations for talking or looking at your mobile phone or texting is that you feel that people think you should always pick up no matter where you are. And also you want to know what's going on. You want to be connecting with your friends or with your work colleagues. So what we need to do is actually decrease that pressure to feel like you have to pick up and increase a benefit of not picking up, which is actually a sense of relief. The reason it's a sense of relief is that what we were able to do is find a chink in our competitor here, which is the nagging of always being available 24/7, and also wanting to really decrease people's desire to be always available. So see what you think of this one. Hopefully you'll have sound with this one.
It's me. Come on, answer the phone.
It's radio 5GB. Now open line is open for you. The number is 1300.
Forward, girl for the Bucks party.
Really sweaty in these pants. Hashtag pleather. Fish tank full of geese, 5 out of 10.
Come on, I always pick up for you.
Now call lines are open if you want to call us. It's a free call at one.
Pizza on the floor, 10-second rule.
Pick up the phone.
Hey, hun.
You're never going to guess what I'm...
Up all night, James. Just
It's a crossing.
crumpets and turtles.
Don't let distractions into your car.
Can't believe Jonesy got one.
Pull one, the other one.
Spot the relief. So what made that ad great? Thank you. So tangibilising the competition, right? Making it, repositioning it as annoying to try and upweight the desirability of the behaviour we want, which is for people to switch off before they get in the car. The other thing that's in the National Centre for Social Marketing benchmark criteria is about not just relying on an ad or not just relying on communications, but having a totally integrated offer. It's going to touch our customers in multiple ways and support them through cycles of behaviour change. So I want to share with you a Queensland example of a project which did go beyond promotion and advertising to use the mixed method strategy to shift the community's engagement with an issue and to change their behaviour.
The challenges of raising kids never stop coming. So when you see the pressure of parenting getting to someone you know, it's okay to offer help. One conversation could make the difference. For ideas on starting that conversation, visit talkingfamilies.qld.gov.au. Authorised by the Queensland Government, Brisbane.
Okay, I'm just going to need to speed up, so I'll go through a bit quicker. I think one of the last criteria was about using advanced segmentation, not just a more superficial type of way of categorising our audience. So the Let's Read campaign was a good segmentation here. It's a segmentation of parents, and it actually looked at how can we get more parents to read. So it was a behaviour change segmentation, and it enabled us to really target in on the parents that were going to be most likely to get across the line with the least amount of funding and the least amount of resources, which was what we needed to do at the time. So our research is guided by best practice. Oh, what a shame we don't have any sound on this one. So this one, what's good about it, it's using humour. It was based on insights amongst regional South Australians, where we found that young males tended to believe that most of the road safety advertising in the state was actually aimed at city people and that they're the people with the problem. And actually, once again, we've gone down the track of trying to influence the people who aren't drunk to get the drunk people not to do the crazy thing. Now, it's interesting, it's using humour, it seems quite light-hearted, but it really resonated with the audience. I didn't just get the young people wanting to do the right thing, it also actually got whole communities behind the campaign. And the brilliant thing about this, I'll just up, is that not only did we get very high cut-through, with the 80-odd% there that saw the campaign, But we also got stated behavioural intentions, around 50% of people saying that they'd speak to someone as a result of seeing the campaign, 15% saying that they would always drive on or below the limit. There's other behavioural change intentions there around seatbelt use. But more importantly, there was actually a reduction in deaths and serious injuries over the life of the campaign. 21 fewer deaths, 28 fewer significant injuries, which resulted in a massive reduction in trauma, grieving, loss, and a lot of money saved. So we've been published. We have proven, and I'm not just talking about me, Brunton here, I'm talking about us as an industry. We've proven that we can create campaigns across a massive amount of different social issues that actually change behaviour. We've won awards. This one even got media coverage, which you also can't hear, but it's actually on a news program saying there's been a 500% increase in female firefighter applications as a result of social marketing campaign. We've been invited to speak overseas, and we've been invited to help governments overseas tackle some issues such as unemployment in the Middle East. But all of this is ignoring one thing. And really, I think on my reflection at being asked to come and speak today, and I look at the last almost 30 years that I've been involved in social marketing, the elephant in the room really is, why are we flatlined? Why are we not able to tackle these wicked problems? Why do we continue to set ourselves goals and struggle to meet them? I'd love to hear, there's never been a more important time for social marketing, as Gerard was saying, to really make a difference in this world. And we don't seem to have been increasing our influence. So I'd love to hear reasons from the audience. Anyone has any to throw in? Because I'm about to tell you what I think, but I'd love to hear what you think. Yes.
Wondering, from your background in research and experience, coming from just our local Queensland domain at the moment, we're trying to influence behaviour based on eat more fruit, smoke less, don't commit domestic violence, drive safely, walk more, play more with your kids, get into nature, get out of the storms. Do we reach a point where the consumer or the person we're trying to impact is at that saturation point and it's becoming grey noise?
Well, my view, I'm a little biased, would have to be, do you think that Coca-Cola would say, have they reached saturation point with my brand advertising? What Coca-Cola would do would be to look at what are the needs and how can we create more products to meet those new or emerging needs or to stifle off the competition. And I think it's up to us. It's our responsibility. But thank you for answering my question, because now I'm going to continue on and I hope it's helpful. So we have to look at why in this world can't we meet the basic needs of all people. We have to ask ourselves, when we have the tools, we have the power and we have the potential. And I personally got involved in social marketing in the original Breaking the Cycle campaign in New Zealand to try to reduce child abuse. And I look at all of the children who've been killed since that time, and I ask myself, why haven't I or we been able to actually do something to save one of them? So it's a huge responsibility because we do have the power, we do have the potential, and yet there's so much more that we could be doing and need to be doing, in my view. We know how to help. We have got the potential. So when I ask myself, what could we be doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? How could we be more effective? And how can we really use our power to change the world? I actually went back to the textbooks and I found Dr. Alan Andreessen's Marketing Social Change 1995. If you haven't read it, read it. It's really great. I think it's got some answers for us about where we might be going wrong. Because this is what he said when we brought him out to Australia in the 1990s about where marketers go wrong in the commercial world. And I suspect perhaps there's lessons for us here. So the first thing was he talked about how traditionally marketers have been all about creating a better product. That takes them to a certain place, and then their sales start to flatline. So then they move on to, okay, let's sell our product. Let's really promote it and advertise it. And that gets them to a certain place, and then they flatline. And what they really need to be doing is looking at their customers' needs and really meeting those needs. So I guess I question, when we look at social marketing, our discipline, all of our power and our potential and our models and our frameworks and our case studies and our publications, do we truly have a customer mindset? The other place he felt we could go wrong is we might consider that our offer is inherently good. Now, often we find we're talking to organisations who think, of course everyone should exercise, of course everyone shouldn't smoke. It's obviously good for them. Doesn't mean that they're going to do it, does it? Because it may not be how the audience actually sees it. So I wonder how social marketers are seen by the people who could potentially be using us so much more to actually make a difference. The other place we can go wrong is if we're not successful, it's very easy to blame the customer, isn't it? We can either blame the audiences, the end audiences to the products we create, or we could blame the gatekeepers to those audiences, the people who make decisions about how they're going to try and tackle these wicked problems. So we might think that they're ignorant or that they have some kind of character flaw. So I don't know if you've heard those conversations over the coffee counters around, we've got this great offer, we know how to change behaviour. Why don't those policy people actually embrace social marketing? Can't they see how great it is? And I think how Alan would answer that kind of thing would be to say it's 100% our responsibility. We cannot blame our customers. We cannot blame our stakeholders. We need to really understand them and meet their needs much better. If we focus on education, we know whilst it's incredibly important, it doesn't necessarily lead to behaviour change. We could fall into the trap of seeing all of our customers and influencers as the same, and we could ignore the competition to the point that when you do a search on Google for social marketing, what generally comes up? Social media. Yeah, that's correct. So the difference ultimately between good marketers and bad marketers, bad marketers start with the needs and wants of their own organisation, and good marketers start with... That's it. So that's great. So that's what we need to do. So we really need to get inside the heads of our customers. And this is where we're saying that missing P is passion. Passion for our discipline and applying it to ourselves. And starting with really understanding our customers, understanding their needs, understanding what it's like to be in a situation where we are charged with creating programs, policy, communications that need to tackle and get results. But at the same time, we're not living in an ideal world where everything is able to be thoroughly researched, everything is able to be, there's consultation and coordination and evaluation. These things often don't work because in the real world, it's often, as Carolyn Page says here, policy on the run. We're reacting to last-minute request to get some runs on the board and to be seen to be doing something. So when you actually speak to the people that are trying to make the decisions, you find that far from having a character flaw or being ignorant, they're highly not ignorant. They're just doing what they think they need to do is going to get them where they need to get to. So our challenge is, how can we better meet the needs of the people who we are attempting to serve? The Australian Public Service Commission regularly publishes the State of the Service report, which goes into great depth about the challenges and problems that public servants face, the lack of ability to be innovative or take risks, and the way that different behaviours that really don't support using methods like social marketing are the norm and are reinforced. So I encourage you all to get inside the heads of the public service if you're not already in there. One of the things that's really helped me, I think, is something I've picked up recently, which is this framework called policy logic. Now, as marketers and communicators and PR people, we've always kind of had a different outlook to those that are in the policy and the program space. But what this does really, I think, is increasingly indicate that there's a bringing together of the camps as we kind of unite to try to solve some of these problems. So policy logic, what I love about it is the first question here asks, what is the problem? So the problem definition that we asked before, is it that the dogs killed the rabbit, or is it that the rabbit was already dead and buried and the dogs dug it up? What is the problem? But ultimately, why does government care? And the great examples that Carolyn gives us is, for example, Meals on Wheels. What's that about? Eating food, giving people food, keeping elderly at home so that we can to reduce the costs, yes. So if we're actually the person deciding who gets the contract for the Meals on Wheels, what would be the most important criteria for judging who should get that contract? Cost? Really? Because we could save a lot of money if we just left the tray on the door, raced off to the next place, left the next tray on the door. Does that keep elderly people out of aged care? Yeah. So what Carolyn's getting at with the policy logic here is that we really need to understand the problem. We really need to understand why government cares so that we can actually develop and evaluate programs in terms of their fitness for purpose, not the stated purpose, but the real underlying objectives. And this is where it starts to get really meaty for all of us that are wanting to get involved more in changing the world. So the other great thing is that we can apply the models, the power of social marketing to our own profession. We can look at how can we move the people who we're trying to influence through the stages of behaviour. Let's get inside their heads and understand what actually motivates them. And we know that what motivates people generally in a workplace is either that desire to make a difference, or it's about getting ahead, or it's about actually their team and being approved of and supported and perhaps recognised in their team, or it's actually about their lifestyle and their ability to juggle their conditions to balance what's more important to them in their lives. So if we can recognise what the fundamental motivation is for the people that we deal with, we can much better tailor our approach and be more successful ourselves. So, at the end of the day, I hope that I've been able to share with you the 3 Ps of social marketing. We need to achieve our potential to create powerful, positive change. So we must passionately apply this knowledge, understanding, approaches and frameworks to our industry. These are the 3 Ps that count in social marketing. Please join me in using them every day. Thank you.
Any questions for Joan?
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm not sure that you really have answered that other man's question about we get saturated with this stuff. How do you, really break through?
So I guess our answer as a research agency would be really understand who it is that we're trying to influence and what is going to cut through for them. So we need to understand whether it's humour, whether it's, what would make it relevant for them, what would make them go, yeah, I get it, what would make it stand out for them compared to everything else they're getting. So we need to find a way to cut through and also sometimes change the tack. So for example, in road safety, for years and years and years and years, it was blood and gore and penalties and consequences, negative, blame them, shame them, small penis type advertising. What we had to do was change the frame because people were just desensitised to the whole thing. So moving on to a benefits-based approach, what the benefits are of doing the right behaviour, looking at, a sense of relief when we don't speed or when we hang up the phone. So something different can cut through. I hope that helps and happy to talk to you about it afterwards. Thank you.